40.
40. Still here.
Still here.
Still attempting to do this.
Still here. Do we have a topic for today? We do.
I don't know what I don't know. I guess after we finish talking about it, we can classify it in one word, but maybe like willingness to change.
That works.
That's kind of
3 words.
Shut up. Mr.
Gotta
American.
get down by 2.
Mr. American Dictionary there. Yeah, willingness to change.
Yeah. So yesterday we, I guess over the weekend, 2 days, we did a chanting course on Zoom. It was good. And I guess independently, both of us had some things come up during the course. There's some overlap there, and there's some not overlap there. But we can talk about what the some of the things that came up, and how they're triggers is what they are.
Yeah, they're just. I'll say this. I didn't realize this, but I've been guided to like do voice activation.
I've been guided to use my voice more, whether that's talking or singing or something is still unclear, but
yeah, but what it is voice activation. Like,
yeah.
if you don't look at it from like the rudimentary physical application, what it is activating your voice, right?
Yeah.
Or activating it more so than we have.
Right.
And so what I didn't realize with the chanting workshop, what will happen is it pushes you past the boundaries of your existing voice thoughts or structures or like capability. And then by default, what it does, it then like triggers things. Not necessarily the things that you thought it would trigger, but things. And then later, like on the second day, the instructor actually said that like, oh yeah, this is very much of like purification. Like it will bring in stuck energy and it will start to flow. So I didn't realize that would happen. And so one of the triggers that I had was unwillingness to change. And how it came up was, there's like 30 people on the call or something. And so there's, 30 Zoom windows in the gallery view over 2 screens. And then sometimes they switch around. I guess I don't know how Zoom decides.
Yeah, when somebody raises their hand, they pop to the upper left for me.
Yeah, but overall though they switch too, right? Like how does the order decided?
I assume it's, it's the host and then it's you,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's you then the host, and then it's the order they arrived. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not alphabetical. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But one of the participants there, I will say this first. So everything that comes up that we get agitated with or angry about or frustrated about, it is not at the surface level vision of it, right? So I will say with the surface level representation of what the trigger was. One, I felt the triggers as we were singing and chanting, and I was having a hard time breathing. But in one of the squares, I saw a lady who was sleeping on the couch with her mouth open. I'm assuming snoring. All the sound was off, but I just assumed she was snoring.
It's possible she was just laying down chanting.
No, this is when the instructor was talking.
Oh,
when the instructor is talking,
I saw that too, but it crossed my mind that maybe she's chanting.
No, this was not when we were chanting.
Okay.
And so the first day, I did not notice her, but the second day when the triggers came up, because like the first day is almost like this introduction into it, and then like things come up, but you're like kind of like you're not there yet. And the second day is when everything came up, when all the triggers came up for me.
Yeah, I was much more bothered the second day than the first day.
Yeah, because the triggers get activated the first day, you sleep on them, and then the second day when your throat is already exhausted and when your jaw is already hurting and you're already so like all these things come up, which was great. I mean, like the workshop was not at all what I thought it would be, but it was great. And so she was snoring, and then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I just find it extremely disrespectful."
I also found it disrespectful.
And so my initial trigger, my surface trigger is disrespect. Like that is where I went. It's disrespect. And then, because I'm trying to do I'm willing to change, I'm willing to do the work forward approach to life is like, okay, so it's not her, it is on me. What is it that is on me that is causing me to react about why what is my perception of her being a disrespectful person has to do with me, right? And so the right thing to do, this is my opinion, is to go, okay, it's not her, it is me. Then what is disrespect triggers within me, right? And then I went, okay, well, disrespect triggers, I think the instructor is being disrespected. And then possibly, and to some extent, me. But, honestly, it's more instructor. I felt there was instructor more so than myself.
I felt that too, that the instructor is being disrespected. And I know that's a projection because I'm like,
No, we're projecting all
if
of it,
I was
right?
the instructor, I would be, it's like if there's a kid sleeping in class, it's essentially a kid sleeping in class. And, it's like, you go smack the table or something. But it's disrespecting the teacher, instructor, and it's also disrespecting everybody in the class, is how I saw it.
Yeah, but it's like personal projection. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the instructor doesn't care,
All right.
and I care and you care, it's on
Right.
us. It's not
Yeah.
on the
I'm
instructor.
curious if everybody else cared or even noticed.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so I started to analyze it. I'm like, okay, it is disrespect. And then where does disrespect go to for me? And then I realized, oh, it goes into somebody, and this is, I will use this word, betraying. So I think that's another trigger for me. Betraying the basic due diligence of human decency. Like, right? Like, and so that's where it went. It was like there's this basic nuance of what it means to be human decent, a decent human being to the other human being, whether it's an instructor or your fellow classmates. And you are, again, this is all projecting. I'm saying none of this is actually correct, but this is my thought process, and I want to carry it through to actually narrow down to the trigger. So then the word betrayal comes in there, and disrespect leads into like betrayal, and the betrayal leads into there is this basic, I believe, or my body perceives energetically that there's this basic line of like, here's what it means to disrespect one another, at the basic level of humanity. And her actions are betraying basic level of human respect.
Right. There's a baseline. This is how we treat each other in polite society.
Yeah.
And you're not even doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it triggered me there. And then I'm like, okay, well, past that, then what is it? And then I went, again, if it's not societal, if it's personal, then I go, okay, I then place myself into being the human being and the victim of this betrayal. And then I go, her actions of not even treating me, let's see, because right, it's about me. It's not about the instructor or the class. It's about me. Her treating me with a bare human decency triggers me into, I mean, potentially back to the table like situation of being dirty and being not
You're not worth paying attention to.
not worth, it's not worth paying attention to. It's being, I'm being treated like I'm below the baseline of human 101, humanity 101, right? Do you know what I mean? Because my table leg trigger would then to go, oh, look, here's everybody else. But in her case, her everybody else is 30 other people, right? And so, right. But that is where it goes. It's like this human being does not think that her behavior would warrant bare minimum human decent respect of me, because if it's on me, if on me, and then therefore this is like utter mistreatment of me as a human being. But I think I have a lifetime besides the table leg situation where I was on the streets poor. I might have brought this up, and in that lifetime, I'm just hungry and I'm poor and I'm like in the shredded clothing, and people don't even see me as a human being. It's almost like Aladdin street rat situation, but like they don't even see me as a human. To them, I'm like nuisance and I'm dirt. That's why I get triggered by the in India. What is the class of people that is
The
called
untouchables.
the untouchables? Right, the people who are stinky or whatever. That triggers the same thing, and my table leg in this lifetime has that same trigger.
See, I'm triggered by, I think it was here in Louisville. They literally bulldozed down some homeless people had set up tents and whatnot, like under in an area of town. I think it was like under a bridge or under an interstate or whatever. And ooh, Derby's coming around, so we got to clean this town up. So we'll just
Not clean the town up. Pretend like we don't have a homeless
that's what I
problem.
mean. I'm that's sarcastic. Clean the town up. We have to
Yeah.
pretend that the town is clean and pretend that we don't have a huge homeless problem, and we'll just literally bulldoze with actual bulldozers, just scoop all this stuff up and throw it away.
Yeah.
And
They do that every year.
yeah, and it's like, this is the I'm actually getting emotional about this.
Oh, but that's a trigger of human decency.
Right? Because it's like this, tent or whatever, and whatever is in it is probably literally the only thing these people own.
In fact, like those tents were donated by the people, so these people are not frozen on the streets.
Right? And, it's just, we'll just scoop it up like it's so much trash and throw it away.
Yeah, but that's you.
Right?
What is that trigger of? That's representation of you as a human being.
Right?
And somebody
it's
doesn't-
disrespect.
It's
It's disrespect.
Somebody's
It's-
not even seeing you
As a person.
as a person.
You're less than a person.
You're less than a person.
There's no value there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a much more extreme example, but it's still poking the same thing in me.
No, but that's what the trigger disrespect is.
Yeah.
It goes down into that, like, I am not even a human being.
Yeah. There's
like humanity, like there's bare minimum, and then there's like me. And they don't even recognize me as one or as a human. I am not even part of, like, let's say we treat everyone like shit, but this is below that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this like inherent value that I do believe that everybody has just on the nature of being a human being, and it's like this is not even meaning that, let alone bringing expressing yourself with bringing more value in
Having a voice.
yeah, but this is like,
Well, you don't even
like less
deserve
than
to have
that.
a voice,
Yeah,
right? Like in this case, like the fact that you can even take up space on Earth and occupy this tent under a bridge, that you don't even deserve that.
yeah,
Or tent in the woods, because it used to be to where they used to be off of the interstate.
yeah. On the little sometimes on the little cloverleaf things, those are often like semi-wooded and semi-private, probably horribly noisy, but
well, they're just trying to find any place where like people can't get to them.
yeah, because that would be difficult to get to. It's surrounded by highway, literally.
Yeah. And so so in that case, like here's humanity. And then we don't even see these
Right.
people or ourselves
We'll just pretend it doesn't exist.
of part of humanity.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the bare minimum, which is helping.
Right.
We are actually undoing everybody else's effort.
Yeah. It's people who have so little in the first place, and so you're just even taking that away.
Yeah, but that's a trigger. So little, I already don't have nothing. And the only thing and
And
I'm
we're
asking
gonna
for
kick you back down to
is
zero.
the bare human decency. And you can't even give me that.
Yeah.
That's what the trigger there was. And I have a lifetime where like I couldn't understand how humanity could just not see somebody as a human being. In that lifetime when I die, and I think I ended up dying as a young boy on the streets in that lifetime. But I remember the existential pain before death of like, how can humanity not see one, a child, two, just like
A human.
a human, just a human, much less a child. Yeah, I'm gonna cry about that too. And so yeah, and so like I died learning the lesson of like um being in this space where you're utterly confused about functionality of like basic human fucked upness, if that's the way to put it, right? Um, which I will lead on to this. Um, I guess it's kind of like willingness to change. The workshop that we took, she also does family constellations, and so she was talking about family constellations, and then that got me thinking about like just healing ancestral trauma and things like that. And then I went on a little rabbit hole of like trying to find family constellations uh, participants in or like certified whatever. Um, and I found a guy, and I ended up reading his bio, so I have no actual.
Oh, not very impressive at all, was it?
Well, no, I ended up reading his bio, and I because he was just one of the certified family constellations things on some website. And what stood out to me that I ended up reading to you was, so in his, I would say corporate world, that's what I refer to it as, but in his world pre, pre spiritual healing or trauma healing,
Yeah.
he worked as a consultant for Los Alamos
Yeah.
National Laboratories, is that what they're
Uh-huh.
called? Where they do like advanced weapons development.
Yeah.
And then it said that like he quit that job and then basically went on
180 degrees away.
to research or look into the tendencies for human violence and uh, other than violence, like there's something else, but like basically warfare.
Yeah. How to what causes it, how to prevent it type of stuff.
Yeah, like but spiritual understanding of what causes warfare and violence, and then basically working and like created some sort of peace thing
Right.
against
It seems that,
violence.
he was involved in, I, tangentially maybe, but making or designing or producing the weapons to, oh wait, this is not aligned with me. How can I prevent violence and war in the first place?
Yeah.
And it's easy, I'm sure, to justify, well, we got to make the weapons to protect us, to stop the bad guys. I get that mindset. But isn't it better if there's just no violence and no war in the first place?
Yeah, but I want to point out that the trigger that I felt the disrespect trigger, right, was triggered into the setting of which I'm a child and I cannot do anything about it, but I am seeing this inhumane treatment and disrespect and utter blindness to humanity. We will project into the world and we will craft the world to reflect our inner being, right? That's the truth. The world, as we see it today, reflects what we hold inside as our signature, right? And then, thus, on our end, I seen that human being snoring in the workshop. To us, triggered within us leftover energy of seeing the world as a broken place where other humans treat humans without bare minimum of human decency.
Yeah.
Right. So that is on us. That is on us, that we are seeing the world through that lens. Right. Now, in her case, I don't think that applies to her. Right. Like, whatever, she was not doing anything that would cause that trigger
Right.
within me. But there's like almost like a different flip side there, to where if you are engaged in active warfare against a nation or against humanity, let's be honest, it's just humanity. What is it that is inside of you that is propagating the need to bomb or the need to bulldoze over, a homeless camp, or the need to see a child on the streets who is starving, and then not offer them food or mercy? Do you know what I mean? And so I know I'm kind of pivoting away, but what would cause humanity to be in that space? And I think the answer is, it is because they're in that space themselves.
I mean, yeah.
Or trying to mitigate the fear that they have, and that space is their way of mitigating.
Yeah. I mean, or maybe this is the same thing as some sort of protection mechanism. It gives them some sort of sense of control. Well, I'm not going to give food and money to the poor starving kid because I need to save more for myself. I need to save more for my family.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe they do, maybe they don't have enough to share. That's almost beside the point. How little would you have to have in order to not share something with a starving child? The poorest, I mean, and maybe this is a super privileged thing to say, but the poorest I've ever been in my life, when my net worth is actually negative. I totally could have, it would be on a credit card and going more into debt. I totally could have bought a meal for a homeless person, right? What's the difference between negative $5,000 and negative $5,003 to buy something, right?
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
that point, right?
Yeah, but you almost have to, in order for you, so this is maybe a point there. You almost have to see somebody less than human, less than you, in order to propagate an action towards them that is less than human. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If you see yourself as a human and you see them as a human, and there's no difference between you and them, you would not be able not to give them food. You would not be able you would not be able to start shooting. You would not be able to start raping. You would not be able to start bulldozing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you see them as a human, just like you are, you would not be able to partake in the action of any, what we would classify as wrongdoing. But it's not even wrong versus right. It is just treating them as you would like to be treated as a human, right? And so our definitions have been skewed because we, through justification of our own pain, have started to classify people something other than human.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that a lot of uh not that wars get justified, but wars get fought, is that, them, those people are fighting, they're subhuman. They're not even human. We make them into this enemy that's so bad that they're not even like us. I think the Nazis were, brainwashed, or, had this
Propaganda.
propaganda that made the Jews not even human, And now it's not such a big deal to go round them up and kill them, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to step on an ant than it is to shoot a human being in the head. And so if you can make them less than human, now it's not it doesn't weigh on your conscience so much that you're killing this not human, rounding them up or whatnot. And it's not just that. I think it's almost every single war. You uh, you almost have to, because it's I can't imagine an army of people who all have compassion for the quote enemy that they're fighting, and then this army has compassion for their enemy. They're not gonna there's not gonna be any war atrocities, obviously, but it almost doesn't make sense how you're gonna
Compassion,
violently
right,
fight.
compassion is same thing as oneness and the same thing as just humanity.
Right.
But we lose our humanity when we start to draw borders and separate our cognitive perception of another being as something other than human.
Yeah. And we make up all these differences. It's like, oh well,
Yeah.
here's this magic border that people drew on a map in the 1800s, whatever, and you're on that side, so you're different, or you have a different religion, you're slightly lighter or darker than me, or you whatever, you're this ethnic subdivision of a race, and we're this ethnic division of a race. Oh, we don't like you. And so we create these artificial borders and boundaries and differences between humans, and then we use those as excuses to kill each other.
Yeah.
Take the land, take the resources, take the people sometimes.
In a way, all of those actions could be generalized. I mean, and that is a very mild and not strong enough statement, but as just disrespect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, disrespect doesn't feel strong enough, but
It
yeah.
doesn't feel strong enough, but that's the same thing, right? To where if we just had a baseline of understanding of what it means for us to be whole, and we actually felt whole, we would, and maybe to some other extent, also knew what it is like not to be whole, right? Having went through the journey from pain and suffering into awareness.
If you have that experience, then I think that helps. It's like, on one hand, it sucks, but on the other hand, everybody's going to have it to some degree. It's not, short of being born a fully realized Buddha, everybody's has some of that to work through.
No, but I think that's the essence of why we are humanity.
The point of life.
The point of humanity, of us as human beings, is to come into the space through multiple interpretations, experiencing world through all of these lenses of atrocities, of suffering, of pain, of fear, of hatred, anger, you name it, disrespect. And then be able to step back and start to draw awareness, which is what that Zoom screen represented, of how I feel when I am interpreting something as disrespect. And what is the action that I want to perform whenever I see somebody disrespecting humanity or a teacher or a class, by my definition, right? And so there's kind of like this paradigm of the right thing to do based on the pain body that being triggered within you, or the right thing to do, you recognizing the pain body being triggered and then actually recognizing what that is.
Yeah. The right thing to do is, what would Jesus do? What would Buddha do if he's in a Zoom class and somebody's sleeping? is he would, I assume, have compassion for this person, and it wouldn't really bother him.
No. He would not find it disrespectful.
He probably would not find it disrespectful.
Yeah, right. He would see through the path that is humanity, is everybody else's way of being and not being, of
Right.
doing and not doing, of
And you don't know this person's story. Maybe they just had to work the third 12-hour shift in a row. Who knows what, there's any number of things. Or it could be, it could be just I'm going to disrespect. It could be anything. We don't know.
I don't even think I could be disrespect. Now,
I really doubt that.
Later, the person moved from sleeping to being on their phone.
I'd noticed that too, because I'm like,
and so I could almost excuse the sleeping, like, oh, I really want to be there, but I am so exhausted, right? Like, but think about this. In my mind, I'm drawing scenarios where, like, I'm giving her space instead of actually being compassionate. I'm giving an excuse of why that's okay. But I'm like, but wait, the phone thing was different. Do you see what I mean? But I'm once again trying to understand and interpret this trigger of disrespect that I have triggered within me.
At one point, and this was the first day. When did Aiden go to Kroger? Was that the first day? Yeah, Aiden was texting me, about what to get, and I'm like, I really don't want to like be visibly on the phone on the screen, because I know I would have taken that disrespectfully. So I'm trying to very, make it not obvious that I'm not for the sake of that I'm trying to sneak, typing in, but I don't want it to come across rude for that purpose. Not to try to hide it because I'm trying to do something on the side. I've got to tell Aiden to get this and that at Kroger, whatever. But I was aware that I'm trying to come across a certain way so that it doesn't come across rude. Because if I just pulled my phone out and was typing on my phone, that just feels rude. And it's like, they don't know that, my son's trying to buy groceries and he has questions. That's a legitimate reason to pull out a phone in as much as one is, but I'm not playing Candy Crush or something.
But on your right, through your personal pain body of being disrespected, when it means to be disrespected.
That means more to me than it does to someone else who doesn't have that particular trigger.
Yeah.
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 And so I'm like, well, I need to spare certainly the instructor and everybody else the disrespect that would come across with, what one can assume is just playing Candy Crush on the phone. Is it really? No, it's actually something, important, I guess. But I was very conscious of that as I was doing it.
There's a program that we watched on Gaia where he was a medicine man in Sedona, and he made a point that the Four Agreements book. Who is it that wrote it?
Pablo Coelho?
I don't know. Is that who wrote it?
Paulo? Or did he do The Alchemist?
No, that's The Alchemist. Is it not the Castell portion? Or whatever. The Four Agreements. Four Agreements. And wait, what are the Four Agreements?
Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. You do the other half.
I asked you because I couldn't remember.
Don't make assumptions.
Don't make assumptions. Yeah.
They're there.
Let me. We should. No, but his point was that it is impossible.
Candy Crush.
It's impossible for us to do that, right? So be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best.
Do your best.
Right. And be impeccable with your word is, again, your personal interpretation of what that means.
Right.
Don't take anything personally is, again, that's as personal as it gets. Don't make assumptions is also like your pain body, and then therefore you're making assumptions off of it. And always do your best is also your personal interpretation.
Yeah.
Right. So none of them are like, here's how you need to behave. All of them are like, here's your trick. no, but his point, this is what I want to say. I don't think the book says this, but I think it should. The guys, I'm rewriting other people's books. I love how I'm always telling people everything that they're doing wrong. But
that's the fifth agreement, right?
I always tell people everything they do wrong.
Fix everyone else's problem.
No, but that's my trigger, right? The reason why
you're doing it wrong. Here, let me fix it for you.
The reason why I have that trigger is because that trigger to me leads to blindness, then leads to inevitable mistreatment of basic humanity 101. And the basic humanity 101, with me has a trigger of safety and survival, period, right? So I know it goes there. But there's something to be said without the trigger about being treated as human, basic human, period. Or, do you know I'm recognizing everyone? Is there something wrong with my mic?
No.
Oh. I know, right? I'm not sure where you're staring into.
I was looking at the mic, but
yes. So his point was those things seem like stupidly simple, and in fact, the book is super thin. Like you can read the book in like one afternoon. But his point is we have extremely hard time following any of those things,
right.
And especially into longevity.
Right. Because I'm like, yeah, like we probably violated all four just looking at the lady on her phone.
Yes.
Because it's like, I'm assuming she's doing this disrespectfully.
Yes.
Is it not? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it probably is, but again, I'm assuming again.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm taking it personally. I am
because it's the trigger.
It's disrespecting
personally
me.
Means trigger.
Yeah, it's disrespecting me. It's disrespecting the class. It's disrespecting the instructor.
Yeah,
I'm back with my word.
Assumptions. Wait. I already forgot it.
Assumptions.
Impeccable with the word is the last thing.
Impeccable with the word is the first thing. Do your best.
Impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
Yeah, but impeccable with the word, you're not judging and bitching about it. Literally, still this minute.
Make a whole podcast about it.
And then, always do your best.
This is not our best.
It's also not her best, right? If we're judging.
But yeah, right? And she probably didn't even hit a high score in Candy Crush.
No, and so yeah, what I wanted to say is his point is we cannot even do it. We cannot even do it.
Do you think we get sponsored by Candy Crush?
As we just dissed the Candy Crush?
Whatever the one is that all the YouTubers are getting sponsored by. Don't play Candy Crush when you're on Zoom calls. Play this guy.
No, but the discussion that you and I had like last week about it was the reason why we cannot sustain this is as long as we remain blind to our personal pain body or to our personal trapped energy or our personal triggers, we will not even see through the fact that we are making assumptions and taking things too personally and not being impeccable with the word, because to us, it means everything, right? Us being triggered into disrespect means something, and I should say something about it.
Right. Impeccable with your word, it's like on the surface, it sounds like don't lie, but it's so much more than that. It's, yes, don't lie, but B, don't say things that you don't mean, and B, do saying things that you do mean. Yes. It's you have the responsibility to say things at times.
You have a responsibility, but you also have a responsibility to actually take it deeper, recognize what is the trigger in, and then weigh in whether or not you should be saying something or the first thing that wants to fly out of your mouth if you actually see through your trigger.
Yeah.
Right? Because my thought process is if I'm always approaching, if I'm being triggered and I want to say something, if I go back inside and go, okay, what is it on me? How is this on me? How is this my fault? Right? I guess I know that's like a victimhood mindset, but that is not what I'm doing. Is like, how is this my fault? And my fault is I'm being triggered into this being disrespectful. This being disrespectful means that I think this human being is treating others below the bare minimum of humanity. And then therefore I'm being treated below mid-level of humanity.
Say, how is this my fault is a tricky way to word that. It's more like, how am I being triggered?
Yeah, how you being triggered, but it is because you're not seeing something within yourself.
Yeah.
Like being your fault, not like it's your fault that she's being disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
What's
your.
causing this reaction inside of me?
Yeah, it is on you that you feel disrespected.
Yeah. The reaction is on you.
Yeah. Right.
In as much as nobody makes you feel a certain way, they trigger you to make yourself, so that you make yourself feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lady on her phone didn't make me feel, irritated and disrespected. She triggered me into making myself feel irritated and disrespected.
Yeah.
That's a very, very important difference.
So it would be, I think it would be a lot easier for us to go through life if you believe in the following the 4 agreements, which they don't sound bad to follow.
Yeah, hard to take issue with any of those.
Right. But I think it would only be possible if you're willing to explore the depth of your subconscious traps.
Why do you want to take this personally? Why do you make this assumption?
Yeah.
Because you feel you feel disrespected in some capacity from childhood, from a different life, from this or that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So no, it became very apparent that, as you know, I was there trying to sing that, like, I was like experiencing these deeper thoughts or deeper patterns within me. Um and then in fact, right, early and I were talking, it then expands bigger because the reason why it's still so alive and so present is because I'm not willing to explore deep down how I feel, right? Which I feel like humanity treating me below par of a bare minimum as a human, right? That's a huge trigger for me. That I still don't know how to unravel, because there's truth. There's some truth and pain that I feel for humanity as a whole. Not myself personally, but humanity as a whole, treating other humans inhumanely.
Yeah.
And it's very apparent right now with all the wars and genocide that are happening, like literally today as we're speaking, right? And so it's hard to marry that truth and then me not see the oneness of the victims that are experiencing what they're experiencing. But this is going to be weird to say, but at the same time, you have to see yourself that the reason why you feel so violent and so opposed to it is because you have that stuck pain within you of what it would be like for me to be treated that way.
Yeah. Maybe through experience being treated that way. This life, previous life, who knows? Maybe through projection.
Yeah. Assuming, projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then on the other end, I guess maybe it is important to point out that if you are, in that case, she's not the aggressor, even though if we didn't do any evaluation, if we didn't do any thinking, we would have put the label of aggressor on her and we were the victims. Right? You're playing like one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, you recognize, well, she's not an aggressor. She's just somebody who is.
You can't be any less aggressive and more passive than laying on your phone.
Yeah, but no. If you
right,
everything is being identified as an aggressor or a victim, right?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And so through that lens, if you see something like, okay, I am perceiving this as bad, therefore I'm perceiving myself as good, right? And if I'm being triggered by someone, and therefore by default I will perceive that someone is bad. Now, obviously, all of this is wrong, but that is just how human body, like survival 101, propagates itself and works, right? Like by default, what the instructor said, it's either you're loving them and you want more and more of them, or you're hating them and you want to like avoid. You know what I mean? In this case, right, I'm perceiving her as bad and I'm making myself good. Therefore, she's the bad guy and I'm the good guy. And therefore, I'm the victim and she's the aggressor, right? That is what that trigger is. But in her case, obviously, she's not an aggressor and I'm obviously not the victim. So I can see through that very easily. But in the scenario of war, where somebody is literally shell bombing a city and killing innocent civilians, we would stretch that out into that same scenario. The civilians are victims, and then the guy with the gun or a rocket, I don't know how shell bombs come out, or maybe buttons at this point, is the aggressor, right? And what I wanted to point out is the aggressor is there because he has let himself or herself take over the pain body of being the victim. And he's actively doing everything possible in order to mitigate that feeling and then exercise the opposite effect thereof within themselves.
Yeah. If you feel out of control
You feel like a victim
and you feel like a victim, then
through the trauma that you're not processing.
then using the gun, launching the rocket or whatever, is the ultimate control. So
Yeah.
you are
Well, no, you don't see yourself as an aggressor. You see yourself as a defender of your victimhood.
yeah, okay.
You're
Yeah.
trying to mitigate yourself from feeling like a victim, being the victim, and you don't see yourself as an aggressor. You see yourself doing the bare minimum in order not to feel like a victim.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a distinction, right? Like, now, I could, like I'm not a psychologist to where I would draw where that extrapolates, where they could go, right? How much pain and trauma do you have to have within yourself to shut that Pandora's box and then go into the remedification? Is that the word? Yep. To remedy, remediation or remedification, I don't know, of that trauma, and then basically go to the other side of like, okay, I don't want to be the victim. And in your eyes, you're not the perpetrator, but you're trying to unfeel the victimhood.
Right.
And so you don't see yourself crossing the line between being a victim and neutrality is not even an option, right? So you're just like, I'm trying not to be a victim. I'm trying not to be the victim. And then the longer and longer you try to not be the victim, the longer you progress through that action, you don't see yourself as a perpetrator because deep inside, the only thing that you're actually feeling is still the victim. And you're just trying to go as far as possible to remedy that feeling.
Yeah. It's, if it's the tilting the scales the opposite direction. If you were abused young, for an example, you have both hands in there. Yeah. You were, abused young, and then you're down here, and you will probably find some way in your life to do this, where, this is maybe where we want to be, but, you'll try to tip it this way, and you may go into some sort of, maybe you will be abusive in your relationships.
But you don't see that.
Right. Or maybe you will go into some sort of career that gives you power, especially in a violent type of way, or potentially violent, police or prison guard or in the military or something like that, where you have, I'm sure not going to be, abused or oppressed down here. I'm going to, if anything, be the abuser and oppressor.
But you never see.
You don't see that. You don't see that. But that's
yes.
But a lot of people who end up in those roles, in those jobs, do come from childhood situations where they felt weak, where they felt disempowered, where they felt abused, and this gives them a sense of power.
Yeah.
And sure, now you've got a gun. Now you've got people to tell what to do. You have, quote, power in a sense, but is it really that external power that makes it that you're seeking, or is it the internal um I don't want to use the word weakness, the internal
I think they're seeking healing of not feeling like a victim,
there you go,
but they don't
the
know how to
internal
heal.
victim. It's not what would actually heal it is healing the internal victimhood, but they don't realize that. They're like, I just need
I need to
I need
not feel
power
like
on the
that.
outside, and power takes the form of, now I can go give tickets to people, or now I can,
I don't even think they realize that they're needing
I'm
power.
not saying that this is a conscious thing at
Yeah,
all. This is
yeah.
all subconscious, but if you feel like a victim, then going into a role where you've got the gun, or you get to tell people what to do, or you're the boss, or you're the traffic cop, or you're whatever it is, if that is a quote position of power where you get to tell people what to do.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time.
I mean,
I
it's
mean,
uncanny.
we see the people who have some sense of power, and whether it's reporting HOA violations or whatever, it's like, well, this is the only way that they can feel not like a victim.
Yes.
For that minute when they're writing their HOA violation ticket that your grass is over 3 inches tall or whatever, they feel like, okay, now I'm not the victim. I'm in control.
Mhm.
Of course, tomorrow
Tomorrow's another HOA
tomorrow you got
violation.
to fight. You got to do it again because the problem's not solved. You've band-aided over it temporarily.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The escalation that sooner or later that grass violation is not going to cut you not feeling like a victim. Sooner or later, you're like, okay, well, this is just the baseline. I still feel like shit because you're not addressing the victimhood feeling like shit inside. You're just band-aiding over and over. And sooner or later, as that wound continues to bleed, that band-aid is not going to solve anything, right? You need a patch. And then sooner or later, you just need a tourniquet, right? And then sooner or later, all blood flow is cut off and you're losing a fucking arm. And you're going to fight harder and harder and harder to maintain that suppressed feeling of victimhood, to offset it with the need for power, with the need for aggression, with the need for everything that doesn't make you feel the opposite.
Yeah.
Because the victimhood will just amplify and amplify and amplify. In fact, every time you do a power trip and you get satisfaction out of it, it by default amplifies the victimhood. Like one feeds the other. Like does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So your kick into a power trip, as good as it might feel on the surface of like, oh look, actually is coming out of the energy of a victimhood, and it feeds the victimhood loop back into you being a victim. And then that victim mindset gets bigger. And so the next power trip you have to have has to be bigger because now the victim bucket has gotten bigger.
Yeah.
Because anytime you do anything out of the place of, oh, look, I feel disempowered and I feel like shit and I was abused and I was whatever, molested,
Yeah.
then the next step forward.
You build up a tolerance to it.
Well, no, the next step forward, the energy comes out of the victim. The next shell bomb that you kick off comes out of the victim. And so you having to kill the 100 people today is just not going to solve the victim bucket anymore because those 100 people now went into the victim bucket. So the next time around, guess what? We need to kill 200 people, right? And then the 200 people go into your victim bucket. I mean, that's literally how it works. And so then your victim bucket is now like, oh, guess what? Killing 200 people in one time with one shell bomb is not going to cut it. Let's go nuclear. And that's how escalation happens. Blind escalation to the fact that you're not addressing the trauma and the pain that you actually feeling inside of where that aggression is coming out of. Right. And so it is easy to, it is easy for us to see through it. And because to us, shell bombing people is like obviously wrong, right? But that is not any different than us judging the cell phone lady and going, well, that's, disrespect, which we perceive as an aggressor. Do you see what I mean? And so it's easy for us to go, yeah, look, she's the bad guy. And so we have dehumanized her as like, yeah, obviously that action is like disrespectful to humanity 101. And so we would almost be okay saying something negative to her or rude to her that we would never actually say otherwise, because we're fighting from the place of our victimhood of like, look, bitch, you're disrespecting 30 people and this instructor who's amazing.
Right. And
Right.
there's
But that feeling comes out of the anger that I feel inside of being the
this
victim.
indignation. Indignation? Is that the word? It's, offended
Yeah.
of it. And it's like, the go-to is to have that aggressive conversation instead of some sort of compassionate conversation. If there is a conversation,
there's no need to
even
have
to be
any
had.
conversation. The only conversation to be had there is to look inside and go, look, I am being triggered because this human being is not paying attention to the instructor.
There's a person who sometimes parks their car in what you and I both think is an unsafe location.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have yet to run into it myself because I think I would say something. But there's, hey, you jerk, don't park here is one way to do it. And then there's a, you can have various conversations with the same goal. The goal is, please don't park here, please park somewhere else, because it feels like it is genuinely an unsafe thing to do.
But I'm being triggered into that.
I'm being triggered into thinking that I haven't seen this, but the way you describe it is it seems like unsafe. Cars have to do.
That's on me because I feel unsafe in that situation.
Yeah, but if you feel unsafe in a driving situation, then feeling unsafe in a driving situation is unsafe, because then you're on edge, and then other things are gonna. I don't know.
Yeah, but
And
that's
if you feel that way, and I feel that way, I have to assume that most people don't like driving by
again. You're
thin thing. I am assuming.
All of this is assuming.
I am assuming.
The only thing that is actually here is me being triggered into this particular situation, this driving situation of where this person is parked, how narrow the road is, how many people are at the crosswalk, makes me feel unsafe.
Right.
And then I have to go into my personal overview of like, wait, why does this trigger unsafety?
But under being impeccable with your word, is it not a responsibility to try to, what I think is, help society?
Yeah, but you do realize there's this balance between like your opinion of what helps society.
I know.
And then
I assume Hitler thought getting rid of the Jews helped society.
Yes.
So
right.
We both happen to share this opinion, and
some people don't.
I assume he doesn't.
No, but like there's people in the world right now that agree with Hitler.
Sure,
there's people back then who agree with Hitler.
Right. What do you do if you think something is objectively unsafe?
I mean, look inside and see why that is being triggered. Like, what is it about that thing is being triggered?
Does that mean don't pick up the nails on the road?
I mean, the Zoroastrian thing is right. Like, what was the Zoroastrian thing is good thoughts, good words, good deeds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a good deed.
Right.
Like in that case, the good deed is, oh, look, I see a nail on the road. How much effort is it for me just to pick it up and throw it away so the car doesn't run over it?
Right. But a nail is just a something dangerous in the road. Is this not something dangerous in the road?
If everything has two meanings,
how is it different?
If everything has two meanings, it has a trigger that you're getting out of it, and then it has like
more objective
of like, okay, well, here's here's the societal view of things.
I see the trigger in it, and at the same time, I see. To me, it does feel like it is objectively
right. Your trigger. Let's be honest. You have no clue that this ever happens, and the only thing you know about it is how
you've described
I feel about it, and you know that I have a safety thing.
Well, you know that I have a driving thing. That, like, when the road gets, accidents tend to happen when things are when unexpected things happen on the road.
Yeah, but your trigger is caused by your pain body of your mother fucking you over. Once again, I'm judging here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the way you saw your parents drive and everything they said to you before you start driving, you're like a paranoid schizophrenic driving. And only after I pointed out to you, you're like, wait, I am a paranoid schizophrenic driving. And now you're trying to ease into it. But
True.
your overall trigger is I'm a paranoid schizophrenic. My parents have programmed me that driving is the worst thing you do. There's literally bullets flying at you from everywhere. And you have to be aware and on the edge and basically have your heart rate at 150 at all times while driving with your hand on the steering or on the honk.
That is true.
But that's like unprocessed pain body and trauma and triggers. And so I guess you're right. When I'm telling you that I'm being triggered by it because it triggers unsafety within me, in your case, it triggers your generational pain body that your parents have passed on to you of road is unsafe.
Yeah.
You have to watch out, road is unsafe.
No, and I see that.
But that's it. That's on us.
Oh, hi.
Why?
You hopped on up. I do see that. But at the same time, I also believe that this is objectively, it would be safer for them to park in a different location. Objectively safer.
Yeah. No, I do.
There are times when I'm like, okay, I'm being triggered by this, and there's it's really okay. It's just me being triggered. It's like when when in the construction zones when there's a concrete barrier on the side.
Yeah.
How is that different from a painted line that I'm not going that I never cross over the painted line? But now that there's a concrete barrier there, I'm like, oh my God, I really don't want to hit that. It's really no different. Except now it gives me anxiety. Now it triggers me into giving myself anxiety.
Right. And so, yes, in this instance, I can see how this behavior within me triggers the safety, right? And it triggers like this person is doing something that I perceive as wrong. And then I, again, brand aggression onto him and I'm the victim. And then therefore this situation, he's the bad guy. I'm the good guy. I'm the victim. And the situation is unsafe, right? But that's what the essence of safety is. Somebody has to be the bad guy and you are the victim, right? If I take that out of it, I thought, okay, I am cognitively aware of that. I am aware of that trigger within me. If I remove that trigger out, to your point, yes, is this unsafe? Like, do I wish that it didn't happen regardless of the trigger? Like,
yeah.
And I question that balance. I question that balance between me having a trigger and then being bothered by it versus, well, okay, the good thoughts, good words, good deeds. What is just the right thing to do here, period, without you having a trigger there? And so those almost need to be separated. And I have a hard time separating because some part of me goes, okay, well, if I didn't have a trigger about it, I would logic it out. I would go, okay, well, like I see him parked there, because there's a 25-minute window in which we can drop the kids off at the carpool, which means anywhere within the 25 minutes, I could or could not run across him, right? So there's statistics that goes into there, right? I logic it out. And then out of that is he is not driving every day. Therefore, he's not going to park the car there every day. And then there's the statistic goes into that, right? So statistically speaking, sometimes I don't see him. Like there will be 5 days out of the week when I'm into the carpool and I don't see him at all. But some days I do come across him, right? Now I have been an idiot and I have not voiced that to him, but instead have given him a dirty look, which I feel bad about. And now he has changed his behavior to be something different. And he thought my dirty look meant he was doing something else different. So he's changed his behavior, but to a thing that I actually don't care, but he still continues to park there. So lack of communication on that end. And then my victimhood perpetrator behavior did extend into a wrong set of circumstances. So yeah, like in that case, that is not good deed, right? My good deed is that time I give him a dirty look and he has changed his behavior didn't do any justice. I was the perpetrator giving him a dirty look, and he's like actually the victim there. And then he has now changed his behavior for something else that I actually don't give a shit about. But the problem is still not solved.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? So in that case, I am the bad guy. I gave him the dirty look. He was the victim because I went into like, I'm going to give you the dirty look because you're the bad guy. And now he's like, oh, well, you gave me the dirty look. So now I'm the victim and you're the bad guy. And so I kind of propagated that pain body forward without actually doing anything about it. I did see him at school and I thought about approaching him and talking to him about it. But then I thought, okay, well, how much of that is just like, useless? How much of this is useless?
At this point, there's 4 days of school left. So what's the point?
There's another logical thing of like why this thing is going to be pushed forward and I'm not going to do anything about it. Now, I will say this. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. Is it the wrong thing to do? I still don't know.
Right.
But I need to be aware of how I feel. What are my actions and what is on my end? Right? Where is humanity on my end? And if I am being triggered, where is that trigger? And if I see him as a bad guy, then what is it that I am doing that causes me to be the bad guy?
Mm-hmm.
That's where all change starts. All change starts out of that awareness, putting onto yourself, and then going from that point.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm victimizing myself and I'm seeing somebody else as the bad guy, then what am I doing? Am I doing anything that is actually, once again, we're back to Nietzsche's, like, you become the evil that you fight?
Yeah, you have to be careful about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the logical way. If I feel like the victim, the thing to do forward is to unfeel like a victim. And how do you unfeel like the victim? Subconsciously, unbeknownst to self, you're going to become the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And then hence Earth 2024. We have 2 very active wars that nobody gives a shit about, and a whole bunch of genocides happening that nobody gives a shit about. Because we're either in the victim mindhood of like, yeah, I'm here, but what am I going to do about it? And everybody else is an asshole. Or we're like, oh yeah, but those dudes are not even human. Look at what they're doing to the other humans. Therefore, we deem them as not human. Therefore, we can kill them because we have put some branding onto them as the perpetrators. And so therefore, we just justified their genocide.
Yeah.
Or extinction of that race or that whatever. And we were playing the most rudimentary childish game of like cops and robbers. Or, what was it in America? They do cops and robbers.
Cowboys and Indians.
Cowboys and Indians. Or, like literally we're adults with massive weapons of mass destruction playing cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians with other people.
Gosh, just think about how inappropriate the idea of cowboys and Indians is.
Yeah, in Ukraine we didn't play. In Ukraine it was more of
like cops and robbers. It's like, okay, well, there's a clear good guy and bad guy in cops and robbers, I guess. Cowboys and Indians.
Is that the mindset of United States childhood gaming? Is cop? Yeah,
I guess.
Did you play that?
It was cops and robbers with us.
Cops and robbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I guess in Ukraine, it was not cops and robbers. It was almost like everybody was the good guy and we were fighting pretend bad guys. There was never ever a bad guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like it's funny because.
And so we would chase. It was, it would be like, someone's, it's almost glorified tag, but, there's more role play because it's like, the robbers are the quote bad guys who are trying to escape, and the cops are the quote good guys who are trying to catch the bad guys.
So it was just a game of chase?
Yeah, it was more or less chase.
Oh.
It was roughly tag. With teams though, kind of.
Yeah, in Ukraine we played war, but it was like we were the good guys, and then there were the bad guys over there somewhere, and like we designed like camps, but we grew up on the heels of World War II. So like that was very much alive still in the country and still is, I guess. But right? But we would like build a camp, and then we would like have sticks as pretend weapons, and stereotypical sexist way, I would be the nurse because I'm not gonna build shelter, which was funny, right? And so yeah, but at the same time, in that case, right, you're being the good guy defending yourself from the perpetrator who's the bad guy. But the idea, whether or not the game is which side you take, is the same. Both of the people feel like victims. Both, victimhood exists on both sides. Nobody actually sees themselves as a perpetrator, let's be honest. And so we are doing everything possible in our body in order to offset the fact that we feel like victims. And like, I know this is silly, but all war, all conflict, every single behavior of humanity not being human is explained in that way.
Yeah.
You're a victim subconsciously. You're not letting yourself see that, but the body of the pain and the energy of pain is still there. And then subconsciously, you're trying to work through that pain by offsetting that feeling, unbeknownst to self, becoming the aggressor that you're trying not to be.
Or a battle is about to happen between aggressors.
Aggressors, right? No, but that's a story of life.
Right.
It's the story of all humanity.
Even the cats are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solution? Let's solve all world problems with this right here.
Realize that if you feel compelled to do something to someone else, that's coming from you. It's not coming from the other person. That isn't to say that what you would do is right or wrong, but it's coming from inside. It might be the right thing to do to ask the guy not to bark there. It might be the right thing to do to stop the guy from kicking the homeless guy. Probably is. It might be the right thing to do to bring some tanks in and stop an aggressor. It might be, but at least realize where that initial response is coming from. And just because it feels like it's the right thing to do doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We're failing to, I think anytime we are assigning somebody else as an aggressor from the blindness of our personal pain, we're starting the whole process or the whole conversation or the whole action forward from the wrong space. If we're not seeing somebody else as human, and if we don't feel them in our heart as one, then we cannot solve anything.
Right. As soon as we start differentiating us and them,
We lose humanity, right? The split between the victim and the aggressor, or the good guy or the bad guy, automatically inserts a line of dehumification or the other. And the second somebody else is the other or not like you, then we justify a world of action that, in no way actually solves anything, even on our end. Like deep down, when you go to bed at night and you perform that action, nothing has been solved. I would be surprised if somebody doesn't feel worse off than they did before they did that action. And that's the truth, is like we don't, but through unwillingness to change and unwillingness to look inside, we don't even let ourselves to recognize how we feel when we chose not to see through our action and remain blind, right? Kind of what we talked about earlier is when you just brush something off to the side, and don't pay attention to what that action actually meant. Like, what did me taking my action do? What, like, did that actually make me feel better? I already did it. Let's say it's in the past. But if I look back and go, wait, how do I feel about it? Was there love or heart into it? Was there like openness? Was there willingness? Was there was there honesty there? Um, and I think 99.9% of the time, most of us probably cannot say that there was honesty in that action or in that thought or in that willingness to see through something.
Right. It was a way to band-aid over the trigger.
Yeah. And to go in the la la land where you're the good guy and they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
And we just left it at that because we don't, then that way we don't have to do anything.
Right.
We don't have to change. We don't have to think. We don't have to acknowledge ourselves as the perpetrator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks a bunch.